Hey folks, well, that All-Star game way back in the rearview mirror. We got the trade deadline just 2 weeks away. And the Leafs, man, they're heating up for a big run, maybe? I don't know. It's what's going to happen. The trade deadline, who knows? We're going to break it all down for you right here on the OZone.
You're in the offensive zone, your place for Leafs hockey.
Hey folks, welcome to the OZone. That's Coach. That's Katie. I'm the Devo. We're here to talk all things Leafs. I'm coming to you from the OZone HQ in the downtown T-Dot in Tirana. Coach, where are you today?
So I'm in the southern headquarters in Texas, but hey, getting ready to go to London, England, fellas. Maybe the next one will get an international flavor to this thing.
Beautiful. KD, what's the scene on the east side today?
Well, no spy balloons have been spotted in the area, and the only thing falling from the sky is maybe the expectations for the Leafs winning the cup. So, but other than that, everything's good.
That's a real tone setter, folks. Folks, listen. Before we get started, hit subscribe, ring the bell. You'll never miss any content. Also, we're going to be having some giveaways for subscribers, so remember that. Also, like, share the video. It's important. Helps spread the word. And leave a comment. We're going to be having a mailbag video pretty soon. So please leave a comment. We'll make sure we include it in one of our future offerings. Okay. It's been a roller coaster ride for the Leafs coming back from the All-Star break. Up and down. Easy win versus Columbus. And a real stinker versus those same Blue Jackets. Hard to make any sense of it. Then, of course, cruising to another win versus that terrible Chicago team. Coach, anything stand out for you in those 3 games in particular?
Yeah, that loss was tough, guys. You know, we hung young Joe Wall out to dry. What was it, like 20 shots in the second period of that game?
Ridiculous.
That was tough. But I'm going to choose to focus on the positive. The 2 wins we've had are real easy wins. That 3-0 win against Columbus was could have been 7. Nylander had chances. He had 8 shots alone. And then blew out Chicago. So, great team wins. You know Ilya is my man.
You're my man,
and here's his stats from the 2 games he played of these 3. That's a 961 if you need it, folks, if you're into the advanced stats. He's been solid. You know, look, he's not Vasilevsky, right? I mean, he's solid. He's top 10 in save percentage, top 5 in goals against, top 5 in shutouts. That's all good, better than expected. But we're putting all his eggs in his basket, or all our eggs in his basket. Anyway, he was good. Oh, and so that loss. You know, Justin Holl was -3. We're going to talk about him a little more. It allowed Connor Timmins to draw in. And, hey, maybe Leaf Twitter was right. Maybe that guy should be playing. He was +3 with a goal. A little rust, couple turnovers. But, you know, he was good. He's good. He can move the puck. He's big. I'd like to see more. It was good to see him back in. Interesting to see how that shakes out from here. So, you know, all in all, pretty good.
Yeah, you'd love to see them have a better record against the crappy teams. That seems to be, it's not as bad as last year, but it seems to still be a bit of a calling card for this team. And I agree with you, Coach. It was great to see Connor Timmins come in, get all over the score sheet. Good for him. We really need to see more of it, ideally before the trade deadline, so we know what we have. All right, KD, what's with this team? Still plays bad against bad teams. What gives?
Yeah, so we're into the new year now and moving towards playoff time. So I'm going to start to get my playoff face going. If you watch the games now, there's seemingly a growing number of beautiful goals and a virtually non-existent amount of those ugly DKI greasy goals. We know come playoff times, those cross-seam passes that Marner's hitting now every game, behind the back passes and no looks and through the seams and rush chances, those disappear in the playoff. Poof, they're gone. The goals that get are the screen shots, the tap ins, the crash in the net. Those are the goals that scored in the playoffs, and they have virtually none this year. So I pray like we're now getting into this slick hockey again, and we need to get back at ready meat and potatoes as we move, as our old buddy Don Cherry used to say, get into the playoffs, and we need to bring that more of that style into the game for sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. We got the Habs coming up. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Or
hey, KD,
in little video.
How much of that do you think is the fact that came back from the All-Star break and 2 against Columbus, they're terrible, and Chicago is worse. Yeah. Like, they're getting those goals because they can. But I don't know. Did you see that before the All-Star break too? That Boston game was pretty humbling.
Yeah. I mean, they seem. I mean, you generally regress to the mean. And you do it actually when times are good, but you also even do it more when times are bad. This team is good enough to score the pretty goals. I mean, they probably, if we were to add them all up and all the goals all the year from all the teams, all the really nice ones, Toronto was probably top 2 or 3 teams in the league with as far as like highlight reel goals. But I think, and we've seen it before in the playoffs where they regress to what they're good at. Again, it's not the desire in the playoffs that wins. It's doing what needs to happen in order to score, and you have to practice and work on that going forward. So I'm hoping whether they make a trade or bring in the right maybe personnel to start doing that. But I do think this team is good enough to do it. They have to have the mindset to go in. Actually, the third line is doing it. Engvall and Camp and those guys, they're the one line who's crashing the net. They just haven't had the results. But, I'd like to see a little more from the top 6 for sure. Okay,
so I thought you were going in the way of we got to bring Matt Martin back. We're not going full grinder here, are we?
No, we're not going full grinder, but there has to be a decision to get into the box. And look, when they lost to Columbus, they didn't defend in front of their net very well, and 2, they didn't go to the other team's net very well. That just can't happen in the playoffs. So let's get into taking care of our own net in front of the net and doing something in front of theirs to cause trouble.
It's funny. I won't even show the text I sent you guys in that Columbus game. But after the first period, and like we started actually with a couple of good shifts in the second, and I sent you guys a text saying, it's nice to see them beating up on some bad teams here. And
you jinsed it.
Literally, I hit send, and the wheels started falling off.
I think I saw Marner showing that to the fellas.
Definitely
Hold my beer.
A moment. But it's absolutely true. It's almost like you threw a switch and I give a shit factor kind of goes out the window, and they just got rolled on in the second period. This has been statistically, to this point in the season, the best second period team in the league, and it's not even close. Although if you look at that game against Columbus, certainly, and we're going to be playing Montreal in a couple of days here, and you look at the last 2 games against Montreal in the second period, they look worse than Chicago does. Like they don't, as you say, Kev, they keep that puck on the perimeter, the cross seam passes that are getting picked off going the other way, lots of rush chances against. They get killed in the second period against these teams, and I think it's because it maybe they think it's too easy for them. But we'll see. In the playoffs, it won't be, and they're, as you say, they're likely going to need to score some blood and guts type goals. Okay, folks, listen. The OZone is well renowned for defending Justin Holl in the face of harsh criticisms, certainly over the past few years. He had a tough game the other night, and he certainly has struggled moving the puck at times. But for the most part, he's a very solid defender. He's the only large defensive player on the roster, really, when you think about it, with Muzzin out. We can't argue that he struggled against Columbus, and we won't. He was a -3, and he didn't look good doing it. I'm going to put a quote up here from Keefe on the matter. I won't bother reading it all out. He talks about how well Holl has performed through much of this season, but he had a real bad performance, and he got benched for it, which is why Timmins drew in the other night. And the real big line here is, don't give me a reason to take you out, and he did. Yeah. KD, I'll start with you. Should he still be sitting, or what's the take? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, now you run yourself into a bit of a problem, right? You take a guy out because you've had a bad game, probably mentally tired because he's probably played a little bit too much hockey, hasn't missed a game and played a lot of minutes and very tough minutes. So he had a down game and he had lots of brain farts and he's tired, so he needed to come out. Now you bring in a guy further down in the depth chart who plays out of his mind, scores a couple goals or scores a goal, looks great. Now do you have a defender
controversy?
I don't think you do over time. Holl is a defender. He's one of the few pure defenders on the team. He's a very good penalty killer, and he plays defense. You don't get much else from him. So when he's not defending, there's a problem there. He came out, played too many minutes. At some point, you get him back. If he sits another game or two, I don't care. He's been benched before in his career. He's sat many times, and virtually every time he comes back and plays really well. So I'm not worried he's going to be bent out of shape. I think he'll be back and he'll be fine. And they need that style. Like we get back to defending in front of your net, which he didn't do last game, or 2 games ago, but he normally does better than virtually anyone else. They need defenders in the playoffs. So I don't see him going anywhere. Just if he needs a break, I wouldn't mind seeing Giordano maybe sit once or twice too, though he didn't deserve to come out. But maybe we need to do that. Some time management a little bit more.
Well, we spoke before the season about that. I mean, this is not a young man, and he's played an enormous amount of minutes, way more than would have been projected before the season. I completely agree. He's going to need some breathers every once in a while. But Coach, while we're on the matter of Holl getting a bit of a rest, surely this can't be the way forward for the playoffs. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm not ready to say that Connor Timmins should play ahead of Justin Holl, and certainly not in the playoffs. I think I'm closer than I have been. Connor Timmins is pretty solid, but I think it underscores the need for an upgrade in the top 4 of this group. Because if you look at it, what this benching of Holl says, it's one game, but what it says is, hey, Sandin's had bad games, fellas. Liljegren's had bad games, but Hall's the guy that sits. So what it tells me is this. There are really 3 guys that are seen as bottom pair guys, right? There's Holl, there's Sandin, there's Liljegren. Okay, so if you're asking me what happens, how do we take this into the playoffs? Well, let me put up here. Here's these guys' playoff experience right now. Okay, so Hall's got 17 games. Sandin's got 5. Liljegren's got 2. Liljegren got 2 when Holl was sat for him in the first 2 games of the Tampa series. Sandin didn't play any last year. Played against Montreal for, I think, 3, and then maybe Columbus for 2 the year before. So this, and then you look at their OZone, offensive zone start percentage. Clearly, Holl and especially Liljegren were deployed as defenders. And Sandin was given the much easier assignment. 65% of the starts in the offensive zone, right? Okay, so that's great. So surely these guys should play in the playoffs, right? Well, Connor Timmins, if I lay this up with Timmins on top of it too, I think we lose sight of the fact, because Toronto's the center of the universe, this guy has more playoff experience than Sandin or Liljegren. Oh, and by the way, he's won a round.
Yes.
So played 10 games or 12 games, 10 in the one run, and he is deployed more offensively, but not nearly hidden as much as Sandin. So I think these 4 guys ideally would be your bottom pair, and you'd pick from there. Leafs don't have that luxury right now. I would also say this. So Timmins in that stretch, right? He was a 3rd pair guy playing for Colorado in the playoffs. But I saw something today that made me think here too. So Jared Bednar had a quote. They were quoting Greg Cronin, who was a Leafs assistant. He coaches Colorado's farm team. And I won't read the whole thing, but he says, hey, Bednar told Cronin that he believed Timmins was the team's best defenseman during that playoff run. Best defenseman. Yeah. Maybe that's a bit of hype. But, hey, that's Jared Bednar. Do you know what he's done that Keefe hasn't? Well, he's won a cup, but I'll break it down even further. He's won a round. So, that's pretty high praise for Timmins. We know he's got the upside potential, World Junior. He's got a pedigree. I would love to see this guy continue to play so you really see what you have in a Leaf jersey and have it be an open competition for that bottom pair. Best two guys play. I hear Holl might be back in for the next game, so maybe use one game for Timmins. I sure hope that's not the case, guys. I hope he gets a chance.
I agree, and we talked about this. It's funny when you talk about D, you really have to look at all the units and sort of piece the puzzle together. But we've talked about how well Giordano has worked out this year, and the tough minutes and mileage he's had on this year. He needs some time off. Could you not swing Brody down, play the left side, and then all three of those guys can play? You got Liljegren, Timmins, Holl, all in the lineup, and you rest 55 a little bit. I think it has to happen at some point, or the worst case scenario, you lose them, and we don't want them dinged up going into the postseason certainly, and we want them available for the postseason. So I think something's got to give there. Listen, Timmins has played quite well in his limited time with the Leafs, but I think we got to get him more involved. And I know when it comes to the playoff, Coach, you had those stats up before. The Leafs have been ousted early, so it's difficult to get a lot of playoff experience on this team. But Holl has more than anyone. Sandin, Liljegren, and Timmins. Sandin and Liljegren, put them together and double them, and you still don't have as much experience as Holl. So it's a very, very inexperienced group. It's also very light, I might add. So perhaps that's a good segue into our next section. Or go ahead, KD.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit in our text, but I'm just going to throw it out there. So, the one reason why Holl is we'll say dependable and more tested is that he's been in a position to fail more. He's put in a position against tough lines in tough situations where he's at risk more. And as much as Bednar said that he thought Timmins was their best D, whatever, he only played 10 minutes a game. So he clearly didn't think in his heart of hearts he was the best guy or would have played more minutes. So he's also been protected too. And it's one thing for the coach to put people in a position to win and to be successful. That's a good coach. But at some point, these guys have to be put in a position to fail and see how they do. And I would say that they're missing an opportunity at this part of the season to really push. I think Liljegren has been put in that situation all year, especially because of the injuries. Yep. But I don't think 38 has, and certainly Timmins has. So I would really like for them to put Timmins in a much tougher assignments. They don't have to do it game in, game out, but do that, push it a little bit more, push it more, and then we can really see what we've got, because maybe he is a diamond in the rough and we sign him for a great contract, but let's see. He doesn't help us in the press box, and he certainly doesn't help us 15 minutes a game on the third pair where he doesn't play against anyone tough. So,
I think he does, Kev. I think he does. He's the third pair guy until proven otherwise. 10 minutes a game? Yeah, Colorado had another kid on the right side that eats up some minutes. His name's Makar. We don't have Makar. And we're not going to get him in the next question either, which is the trade deadline question. Yeah. So, no, but look, yes, it would be awesome if he could play with Riley and play those minutes. That's asking maybe too much. I just want the best six guys to play. Yeah. So, that's fair. Yes, testing him is absolutely necessary, right? But let's not elevate him past really where he probably slots in right now, as in terms of playoffs, right? Right. Yeah. Look, we threw Ilya Lyubushkin out with Riley, and it stuck. I don't mind trying that. Let's try something.
Yeah. I don't mind trying it, and I agree with you. Obviously, the best six once it comes to spring hockey, we definitely need to do that. But we got to get 55 some.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. You're right. Yeah.
All right, so we talked a lot last pod about what Dubas might look to upgrade. You know, we netted out that a top 4D was really priority number one. KD, is that still the case, or what are we talking about here?
I mean, it is. In a perfect situation, it absolutely is. But, there's reality too. Like, is there the right guy at the right price that you could bring in? There's seemingly more forwards that I think are out there that can move the needle, to bring it, improve the top six and push guys down, which would be my choice, is to go big or go home. But, just like I was saying before about, we have to start worrying about how we play and getting ready for the playoffs. You have to look, not worrying about catching Boston or keeping away from Tampa Bay. It should be, can we beat Boston? Can we beat Tampa Bay in the playoffs? And what do we have to do to the group in order to get there? So I would say if you could only add one player in order to try and beat Tampa or Boston, it would be a defenseman. Absolutely. Ultimately, from the right side, top right D. If not, top four, you add a lefty too. Maybe you get a guy who can play on both left and right to create some help. But that would be, to me, the way you could compete against Boston or Tampa Bay better.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The trick to all of this is, what's for sale, and the list seems small, but I think the list is often a lot deeper than what the press tell you. They like to grab onto a couple of names and go on and on and on about it, and the echo chamber goes on. Coach, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I'm still on record. We need a top pair D, like the best D we could possibly get. Someone that pushes everyone else down for the reasons we've talked about over the last 10 minutes or so. But I'm not convinced that guy's available either. Yeah. I would hope we're going beyond what has been talked about is available out there. We were kicking around earlier, St. Louis. Where are they selling? Sure looks like they're selling now. You'd need some retention there. But if nothing is available, I would take a swing at a big forward. If you couldn't do something on the D, I think the roster needs a shakeup. I think this team's really good, and they're scoring goals like you described, Kev, and they're going to come second or third in the division, which is 5th, 6th, 7th in the league. That's really good, but the chances of winning a round are maybe even less now than they were last year. So the roster needs a shakeup. I would bet big. And, if anything's solidified for me since the last time we did the pod is, I think the first-round pick must be in play to go get a guy that is clearly top of the lineup that pushes people down. What did we say? When is that pick for us that's going to be in the 20s? When is 26. That guy, that kid, going to be? Yeah.
26
5 years
overall. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
he's 4 or 5 years away from making an impact. I mean, put it in play. We should go all in because not good enough, right? Nobody saw Boston being this good, but, man, Tampa caught us, right? At Christmas time, it's like we're cruising in second. Maybe we could catch Boston. It's a dogfight here, and they have much better goaltending. So if we're going to win that series, something different has to happen.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And like the names that we hear shopping around, Chychrun. Listen, I'd love it if we could somehow figure out. It seems like the price tag there is really high. The other names don't really inspire me. We've heard about McCabe in Chicago.
He sure made sure that no one's interested in him. He fell down on that goal 9 seconds in. He's like, hey, Jake, you might be traded here. Yeah, hold my beer.
Cross that off the list.
But he also doesn't fit the. I mean, here we have another guy who you want to log heavy minutes who's not heavy. It's another. It's just doubling down on what we already have. So I think when you look at what the market is selling right now, it doesn't look great. Now, are there teams that have some guys? You mentioned the Blues. We've talked about them a bit. They've got a lot of big, experienced, grizzled D that are on long-term maybe even detrimentally long-term contracts. But it offers a more creative deal than a lot of the things that we're talking about. You know, giving up Nyes and a first-round pick and a top prospect, and you know, maybe you can go at one of these sort of difficult contracts and maybe make something work that's not being talked about amongst the big leaderboard items. I think if there's going to be a big deal for Toronto, that's probably what it's gonna be. It's gonna be something that's actually not being talked about. All right, guys, that's it. That's everything we got for you right now, folks. We got some games coming up. We got some shorts coming out. You're going to know about them because you subscribe, right? You subscribe to the OZone and you're here, right here with us on the OZone.